The battle between AI companies and the recording industry continues. Amazon apparently may enter the AI party soon, and Olympics watchers can get updates from an AI Al Michaels. We'll talk about these stories and more on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. This week's guest co-host is our old longtime pal, Jack Gold, principal analyst at Jay Gold Associates and a contributing columnist for Computer World. Always good to see you, Jack.
Always good to be here.
We are in between kind of holiday weeks, and so this is we're about to hit the 4th of July. So I appreciate you coming in and filling in for our regular guest co-host. But you're cool.
Thanks.
I know. As I was saying it, I was like, "Oh man, this sounds like an insult," but it's not. I appreciate you being here.
No, happy to be here. Always enjoy this.
All right, so let's get to the big story. There's a ton of AI stories this week that we're going to go through. Sure. But the one that didn't surprise me, but it is a big deal, is that the world's biggest record labels are suing two artificial intelligence startups over alleged copyright violation in a potentially landmark case. Firms including Sony Music, Universal Music Group, and Warner Records say Suno and Udio have committed copyright infringement on an almost unimaginable scale. They claim the pair's software steals music to spit out similar work and are asking for compensation of about $150,000 per work. And when you add that up, it just becomes this massive sum. And so the lawsuits were announced on Monday by the Recording Industry Association of America, are a part of a wave of lawsuits from authors, news organizations, and other groups that are challenging the rights of AI firms to use their work. So we've seen it in the text space, we've seen it in the image space, and now we're seeing it in the audio space. And I won't be surprised as once the AI video stuff gets better, you're going to start seeing those as well, those kind of lawsuits. Suno, which is based in Massachusetts, released its first product last year and claims more than 10 million people have used its tool to make music. I've used it. We talked about it on the show. I've used it to create funny little songs either about my family or our dogs, and it's an amazing tool. But I did not realize that it could lead into this whole copyright infringement area. And they have a partnership with Microsoft, and recently announced that it raised $125 million from investors. Now, the other company is Udio. They're based in New York, and they're also known as Uncharted Labs. They're backed by high-profile venture capital investors such as Andreessen Horowitz. It released its app to the public in April, achieving near-instant fame for being the tool used to create BBL Drizzy, a parody track related to the feud between the artists Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And the complaints... The lawsuit says that Suno and Udio produce works like, apparently there's a song out there called Prancing Queen that even devoted ABBA fans would struggle to distinguish from an authentic recording from the band. Songs also cited in the Udio lawsuit include Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You and My Girl by The Temptations. Now, the RIA is not claiming that these specific sound-alike tracks infringe on copyright. Rather, they're suing because the AI companies used copyrighted music as part of their training data. So neither Suno nor Udio have made their training data sets public, and they're all very vague about the sources of the training data, which should be a red flag to everybody. So even OpenAI has dogged questions about where it's getting its training for its Sora tool, which is their video AI system. So in a sense, not surprising. In another sense, this was pretty much expected, right? And the only thing I would have to add is that whenever the RIAA gets involved, like, they are a very, very big and powerful organization. You don't want to mess with them. So, Jack, what are your thoughts on the music stuff now?
Yeah, look, this is an extension. We've been going through this forever, right? I mean, we went through this with Google Search, remember, because they got sued multiple times because Encyclopedia Britannica went after them. A whole bunch of people went after them because they trained their models, their search models, on everything that was out there. Now, if you're creating something, whatever that happens to be, a song, an article, a podcast, and somebody goes in and uses your stuff without paying you to basically make money, that's not fair use,
right?
Because these guys are getting paid for this stuff. So I don't have a problem with what's going on. I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be extended beyond what's reasonable, because, as you say, the RIAA has a lot of lawyers. They do a lot of suing, and they ask for gazillions of dollars in money, literally.
Yeah.
So it'll probably calm down, but we're going to see this. We're going to continue to see this you're right. We're going to see it in video. We've seen it in audio.
Yep.
We've seen it in text.
Yeah, and images.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Images,
I think the issue here is interesting because of the copy. They're not necessarily going after them for copyright infringement, but rather they're looking for that training data sets. And the cynical side of me is like they're just doing this so that they can get a settlement, and then they will license all of this. So they're going to license all of these to these companies. So you're going to get all of that music at some point, but it's more of the idea of, are you allowed to scrape a website for the content, or do you pay the publisher the right to do it? I think, as we were speaking this, today, OpenAI or someone just announced an agreement with Time Magazine, for example. So now all of the Time Magazine articles throughout the history of Time, pun intended, I guess, are now available for training data and training sets. So it's going to become a battle of training data sets and who's got the rights to sell that to other people and make money off it. I don't think, this whole high and mighty, we're protecting our content. It's like, no, you just want to get paid for what's already been produced.
Well, I look at it a little differently. So if you want to build a business, I'm all for you going out and building a business. Mm-hmm. Just don't build that business and start charging people in your business based on what I've already created.
Right.
It's like being rent free. Should you open a restaurant in a building and not have to pay the building owner rent?
Right.
And I, that's not fair. So there's going to have to be a settlement. It's going to have to be a reasonable settlement. But there's going to be some kind of arrangement struck. I mean, this goes back to years. Remember the old days? I'm an old guy, right? Where you couldn't rip your CDs.
Right.
Media player, you'd get sued, and that got resolved. That's a little different because that's personal use, but still, it got resolved.
Right. I remember when you were ripping your own MP3s and then you were sharing them through what was it, Kazaa, and there was another. There was a bunch of them. Yeah. Oh, I can't remember the name of that company now.
Yeah, I can't either. Right.
Because I think Sean Parker was involved with it, and then he went over to Spotify as well. But again, the whole music thing was, at first it was they were like, oh my gosh, we got to sue you, we got to sue you. But then eventually the companies then just created their own businesses and platforms. And the same thing, you saw that in streaming. Everybody at first was going to Netflix and they were licensing the content. And then a lot of these content owners going, well, why can't we just build our own streaming platform? And now that's why we have 20 different streaming platforms with all of this content that's owned by these companies. So maybe down the road, you're going to start seeing all of the Universal Music Group and all the people that own the music will just start creating their own little AI companies to basically serve those types of needs of new song creation or whatever.
Yeah, but that doesn't work either, right? How many subscriptions are you going to carry?
Yeah, well, at first you were going to, you had to pick and choose, and now, it's either, it's not everything. So yeah, I have to, as a consumer, I can't get access to everything unless I pay for everything, and that was the whole point of getting rid of cable, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, and again, I think there was another, as part of this, going back to the training data, there was another alliance that was announced. So there's going to be an industry association that's going to be looking to licensing all of these content for all of these AI companies. And the scary part is that a lot of these AI companies have admitted that there's not enough data out there anyway. So I'm not sure how much these models are going to even get better or better because of the lack of data and the lack of training sets. But maybe there's a lot of data that hasn't been scraped yet. And, maybe there's companies that can license out that.
I mean, the reason RIAA exists going way, way back was because record companies were the early days of radio.
Right.
Disc jockeys were playing radio, the records for free on the radio. The artists weren't getting paid.
Right.
And so the RIAA came along and said, hey, you're making money and not giving me any of it. I want to share. So it's going to get resolved. It's going to take probably 2, 3, 4 years before all of this gets resolved, but ultimately it'll get resolved.
Yep. All right. I want to move from that to the Amazon space. Amazon is apparently developing its own consumer-focused AI chatbot, which would compete with OpenAI's ChatGPT and could be revealed later this year, according to a report from Business Insider. The chatbot service, which is codenamed Metis, would be accessed via web browser and powered by a new foundational model, according to Business Insider again, which cited a bunch of sources and documents. The move would add Amazon to a growing list of tech giants and startups offering new AI assistants, including Microsoft, Google, Amazon-backed Anthropic, and several others. So what's interesting is that this also comes on the heels of Amazon's plan to roll out a new version of Alexa called Remarkable Alexa, which includes a paid tier. I think it was $5 to $10 a month to use a smarter Alexa, which I just think that it's interesting that, like, I would not pay that $5 to $10 extra a month until I know how good it is. So it's amazing that they aren't saying, like, well, here's a free version, but if you want really good answers, here, maybe pay us. They're initially just saying, just pay us for it, and we promise that it'll be better. So Jack, I wanted to ask you, is Amazon now too late to the party, or is there room for another chatbot out there? Considering, like, a couple of weeks ago, we heard from Apple. Apple finally started integrating some AI into its products, and we had a guest on the show who said that Apple is always late to the party, but they bring the best snacks. That was Mike Simon from Macworld who said that. So if Apple is the guest that always shows up late to the party, what is Amazon now? Is Amazon like the person that's really, really late to the party?
But you got to look at it a little differently when it's Amazon. So Amazon's got a different model than say Google does, or Meta does, because Amazon has a huge with big H business in selling us stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you look at it from the perspective of a chat box that helps you buy more stuff on Amazon, then they're not late to the party.
Right.
That works for them. And by the way, then they remarket that to Walmart, Target, whoever, right? Spotify, Shopify, whoever's going to be. Their goal is not. By the way, Remarkable Alexa isn't going to make it. That's just a non-starter. People are turning off Alexa now because of all the spying that's going on. Can you imagine? You want me to pay you to spy on me, right? No, ain't going to work. So that's a different issue. But the chat box, from a corporate enterprise perspective, Amazon hosts tons of customer service sites.
Yeah.
Right. Why wouldn't they tune that for my needs as customer service? Why wouldn't they tune that for my needs as shopping? Why wouldn't they tune that for business needs? So it's different than what we're seeing, I think, from the other vendors.
Right.
They're going to target this more at their enterprise back-end services stuff than just here's another chat box that no one really cares about.
Yeah, so it's almost like what used to be the Intel Inside logo. Like, it's almost like a third party, like, Amazon Alexa Inside. So we'll have this ability so that you could build your own chatbot without having to go to these other companies. You can now work with Amazon that you're already working for or with in the cloud, right? Yeah,
and they probably won't even label it that way. It'll be... You're going to shop at, I make something up, Target, right? And there's going to be a chat box. You don't know where that chat box came from.
Right.
And you don't care.
As long as it works.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, see, I think that Amazon still might be interested because they were selling hardware. I mean, they were selling these smart speakers. And that was Amazon's push into the home hardware market. Maybe they're going away from that. They've got all the cheap TVs, but I remember there was a holiday season where they were just unloading these speakers. You could get all of that little tiny ones for like $10 or $15, maybe even less. And that's when we saw a rush of everybody using it. And then it turns out that everybody uses it for either basically three things: one, to play some music on; two, to set a timer or set an alarm; or I think that was it. That may have been it. Because when you would ask it a regular question, it wouldn't give you the right answer at all.
Well, now they're pushing it as tying into your
Amazon
buying. So you could tell your Alexa speaker to go, renew my dog food, right?
Right.
Or whatever.
I don't think they've had a lot of success with that, though. It feels like that's just ripe for mistakes.
And it also is hard because how many times do you reorder stuff? Most of the time when I'm going to Amazon, I'm probably buying something new. Hard to buy something new between that. So the hardware business for Amazon has never been successful. Remember when they made little handhelds, they made little laptops, they made tablets. The tablets business, the Kindle business has done okay for them, but that's not really is.
I think the Fire, they made the Fire tablet. I have an Amazon TV that I got for free from a previous job. I won a raffle and they gave me an Amazon TV.
Worth every penny.
That thing was, worth every penny of zero. I mean, that it's now sitting in my living room because I've even offered it to my kids and they're like, no, like they don't want, they don't want the TV in their room. They're happy with what they have. And it was like, okay, well, So it's just, if anybody wants it and wants to pick it up at my house, I'll certainly give you the TV.
But look at where Amazon makes money. Amazon doesn't make any money really on the hardware, as a function of what their overall sales, right?
Yeah.
They make money in clearly the stuff that they sell on Amazon Web, but on AWS.
Right, AWS cloud services. Right. So, yeah, I mean, even is there Prime Video? Is that even a moneymaker at this point? I mean, I suppose, they paid a lot of money for the NFL for Thursday night games.
Yeah. Well, they're raising the prices on that as well. And people are turning it off.
Yeah.
So Prime, the reason I subscribe to Prime and where I think most people subscribe to Prime is not for the video.
It's the one day, 2-day shipping. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's free, right? You more than make up for it if you buy a lot of stuff from them. So that's a second effort. I think they're cutting back on that stuff as well. I mean, there aren't as many new programs coming on Prime as there used to be. So that's it's gotten very expensive, by the way, to make new programming.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem for them.
But I'll tell you, that their Fallout series was amazing. I loved that series. But again, I'm the built-in audience. I've been playing that video game for years and love that video game. So, for a customer who might not have known that, but I've seen all the other Amazon shows and I'm like, I'm not interested. Yeah.
Right.
And if I could get rid of it, I would, but it's that bundled in with the 2-day and 1-day shipping, especially when the holidays are coming up. All right. So the reason I brought up the NFL package is because it was sports. Here's the sports segue. So this is getting a lot of coverage in the mainstream media. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the people that are annoyed by this, but an AI version of sportscaster Al Michaels is going to be delivering Olympic recaps on Peacock as part of NBC's coverage of the Olympics. He apparently the Al Michaels AI is going to give daily personalized recaps of the Paris Olympics on Peacock, and in practice, the effect is a lot like hearing a sports announcer's voice in a video game like Madden, except now it's spitting out lines about real life sports, which in this case means custom Olympics coverage. So here's how it's going to work: you basically will set up on NBC, which is your daily Olympic recap in the Peacock app. You give it your name, and the AI voice apparently can welcome the majority of people by their first name, and then pick up to 3 types of sports that you are interested in and up to 2 types of highlights. For example, either the top competition or viral and trending moments. Each morning, you'll get an Al Michaels AI-led rundown. The voice was trained using Michaels' appearances on NBC, and the experience was built in-house. Let's see. It starts this will be available starting on July 27th in supported browsers and the iOS and Android Peacock apps. Apparently even on my ride into work today, the 2 guys on the radio were annoyed by this, because they felt that, like, why are you allowing AI to basically mimic your voice and prevent other broadcasters from trying to why can't you use a different broadcaster? Or I guess I understand the reason why that you'd want to have an AI voice do this. But it does seem pretty selfish on Al Michaels' part, because he's still alive. And so I could see this if there was a sportscaster who had passed away and the estate was like, well, yeah, you can license so-and-so's voice. Like, what this is going to bring everybody way back. But Howard Cosell, for example, he was the big broadcaster back in the 70s and 80s. Like, why don't they reach out to him or his estate, and then he could give the updates, and then they get paid. So it seems weird that Al Michaels would say yes to doing this.
Well, but we don't know how much he's getting paid.
Yeah, right? I'm hoping he's getting paid. I'm sure he is. Well, as a theory, could IDG, who hires, who employs me right now, do the same thing if we wanted to do an AI version of me, just the audio, for example, and give audio updates? Because this is not, you're not seeing a video AI avatar of Al Michaels. I've seen the little video demo, and it does sound like Al Michaels. The technology is good. He does sound like it. There are some questions about accuracy about whether this AI is going to announce the wrong winner for some of these sports, and if you're going to get any kind of hallucinations. The other issue is scale. It's nice when you demo it now, but what happens when you have 10 million people that are all trying to get these updates?
Right.
So it should be interesting as the games go on. Are you interested in this just to see if it works, or are you a fan of the Olympics?
I'd be okay with it. I'd try it. I know that I've subscribed. I mean, my following the Olympics is 10 minutes on sports and the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, it's really weird. I used to really enjoy watching the Olympics when I was growing up as a kid, but then as technology advanced and then the internet took over, you could get updates before you would ever watch anything on TV. Or you would try to avoid any spoilers because you were going to watch the event on TV. But now it just there is some live coverage if you really want to sit and watch that stuff. But depending on the time zone, it's always, you never get anything really live because they're either way far ahead or way far behind on where the Olympics are.
Well, and then each event is an hour or two long. So how many events are you going to be able to actually watch?
Right. NBC's coverage of the Olympics has always annoyed me because they only focus on the American competitors. And then you get these 20-minute, feel good story pieces. And then the person that's in the event, doesn't qualify for the finals, or you don't get, and you don't get to see every other competitor. There was one time I went with my wife over to England during the Winter Olympics, and there the BBC's Winter Olympic coverage was completely different than what you would get from NBC, and you would also get sports that you would never see. So we saw a lot of curling and a lot of ski jumping. Apparently, there was some British interest in that, but in the newspapers you had almost no coverage of it. They were still covering soccer and cricket and all the other sports that are big over there. So, it's a little gimmicky for NBC to do this with this AI, Al Michaels, but I think he's getting more heat than kind of blaming the company for this. And then I started thinking this was the best that they could do in terms of AI is just to have an AI voice from a broadcaster.
Well, don't forget they're doing that for a reason as well. Al Michaels has a following, right? And you're basically leveraging the following that he's already got to try and get people to listen to this or subscribe to the service. So it's not a bad, if they did hey, here's Keith and Jack doing a sports podcast, who's going to listen? Who's going to subscribe?
Right.
So it's a smart move on their part in that sense. Now, whether you like it or not is a whole different issue. That's a personal thing.
Yeah.
And the fact is that a lot of people are turning off, we talked about Alexa earlier. People are turning off. I know people who are unplugging Alexas in their houses because they don't want people monitoring. If they really need something, they plug it in for 5 minutes, they do their thing, and then they unplug it. Same with Google. It's not just Alexa. So it's a personal preference thing. I don't know how long it's going to go on, and by the way, maybe they have guest hosts. Maybe it's Al Michaels today and it's, somebody else tomorrow. Maybe they bring in Howard Cosell in the future. This is Howard Cosell reporting. I can't do Howard Cosell, but
that's the other problem is so many people would do bad Howard Cosell impressions. Are you getting the impression or are you getting his actual voice? All right. So there's a theme here that we're working on, Jack, and it's more of the insanity of AI. The second story I wanted to bring up was the owner of Toys R Us has apparently used OpenAI's Sora to animate this brand. They don't even have stores anymore. The stores are located inside Macy's for the most part. I think in the UK they've got some other stores that are working with another retailer. But brand management firm WHP Global, which currently licenses the Toys R Us brand to stores like Macy's, created a 1-minute video using OpenAI's new text-to-video tool, Sora. The teaser trailer suggests a documentary about Toys R Us, but most of the things people are going to be discussing around is this mostly AI-created video. Native Foreign, the creative agency that produced the footage, said they had about a dozen people working on the video and then applied corrective visual effects on top. The director said Sora produced about 80 to 85% of the project, with humans finishing the rest. I've watched the trailer. There's this creepy little kid with glasses on that is the main focus. Apparently, in this documentary, he was the founder of Toys R Us. A lot of it is cheesy kind of CGI. You can obviously tell that it's CGI, but also that it's generated by AI. You still get that uncanny valley effect of like, I know this isn't a real person. It is an impressive demo in terms of the AI generation, but they also haven't said whether or not they were able to do this in the same amount of time or faster than a traditional either visual effects project would be. I think OpenAI wants to court Hollywood with this idea. I'm not sure how well that's going to be taken. I think a lot of people that are looking at this are just saying, wow, this is really kind of off-putting and creepy. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts there, Jack?
Well, there's two pieces to this, right? One is just being able to produce via AI characters, an image of Keith, an image of Jack, an image of Joe, or Sue. The other piece, though, is production quality. And that's why, companies like Pixar are around. Pixar is not, they're not standalone anymore, but they just did, what is it, Inside Out 2? Yeah. That's not just about the animation. That's about the story.
Right.
And AI is not good at creating the story yet. So, and you could argue they're not even that great at doing the animation yet. They're getting better, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So will they get there eventually? Maybe, but I can't see taking people out of this loop long term because of the creativity aspects. AI is just not that good at that.
Yeah. Anytime you get it to create a story, it feels like it's generic. It feels like it's, it's something that you would have, that a fifth grader would write. There's not a lot of imagination around it. Once you see it as a human, you're like, well, yeah, I could make some tweaks to it. Like I've used the text generation to create backstories for some of the Dungeons and Dragons characters that I create. But when I see the backstory, that I just add in my own stuff afterwards. I was like, okay, that's a decent backstory, I guess. But it's one of those backstories that you've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of times in any kind of fantasy films, things like that. Because again, the data set that it's using is based on all of the history of all of these different stories. It is so. It's the same kind of thing with this video. I'm not seeing anything that's super imaginative or creative, or that doesn't need another human to go, oh, maybe we should have that unicorn fly better or something like that.
Yeah. Well, again, they probably got a good deal doing it.
Yeah.
Probably didn't cost them all that much, relatively speaking.
If I was the owner of Toys R Us, I'd try to expend my energy on, getting back into stores or getting back into a retail environment. But again, Amazon killed that brand. Just for the ability to order quick for toys and stuff. And even, the only place I see toys anymore are in a Walmart or a Target. And, so I'll still peruse the toy aisle as a parent, but also someone who loved toys as a kid. So
I remember walking through toy stores, just toy stores. Yeah. Not even before Toys R Us.
Before Toys R Us, there was this one store in Schenectady, New York, where I grew up, which is called Dwayne's Toyland. And whenever my parents brought me there, it was an old house that had been converted into a toy store. Right. And so, you had all of the trains on the top level, but then you could go down into the basement, and then they had rows and rows of like board games, and it was just an amazing trip when you would go. And I have a feeling that's where my parents bought a lot of the toys, when I was a kid growing up. But they got destroyed by Toys R Us, and now Toys R Us then got destroyed by Amazon and the internet and e-commerce. So circle of life, Sears right? Got destroyed. All right, I got one story of your life. Yeah, I got one more story that reminds me of Jurassic Park about if scientists can do something, why do it, or at least stop to think about why you're doing this. But Japanese scientists have found a way to attach living skin to robot faces for more realistic smiles and other facial expressions. The breakthrough came from copying tissue structures in people, according to a team at Tokyo University. The prototype may appear more Haribo than human-like, but the researchers say it paves the way to make it convincingly realistic moving humanoids with self-healing skin that will not easily rip or tear. The artificial skin is made in the lab using living cells. Not only is it soft like real skin, but it can repair itself if it's cut. The latest results are published in the journal Cell Reports Physical Science, and they say it will take many more years of testing for the technology to become an everyday reality. And you also need a lot of other stuff going on there. So,
so they're remaking the Terminator.
Well, I think that they want to make they have robots that look like the Terminator because you can have like a metal skull and different parts. But the idea is to put a more human-like face around it so that it looks more like Data from Star Trek and less menacing.
Right.
And so, when I was covering robotics, there was a lot of interest in providing skin overlays for different things. So there's a lot of research in this space, and I guess the big problem is making the skin stick to your metal actuators. But then once it starts to move, then unlike skin, it starts to rip and break and tear. And so I think that they're looking for ways to do that. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if I want to have skin on my future robots. Even if they're humanoid looking. I was like, just make them plain or stick a little face or googly eyes on it, and that'll make me happy. But I don't know what's going on with those scientists. Any other thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah. Well, a couple of thoughts. Number one is if they're really able to do this and they're really able to make a lot of artificial skin that works, that's going to be great for the medical community as well. I mean, think about all the burn patients that need that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
I would focus my research there instead of in the robotic space.
And I agree. But they do think psychologically, they do think that more human-looking robots will be much more acceptable to a much wider array of people.
Right.
And especially young people, actually. Think about it, right? If you're going to take care of a baby, you're not going to do that with a metal-looking robot, right? You want it to look like its mother or something similar.
Right.
So there is need to do this, but I agree with you. For most people, I think you want to know it's a robot, not have it look like me.
Right.
What's next? They're going to grow beards and mustaches and hair. I mean, it's just take it to the barber every month. I don't think so. So
yeah,
it's research. Research goes in all kinds of different ways. And by the way, these guys, that's how they make money. Not make money, but that's how they get grants.
Right.
They can do this research because it's new leading edge stuff.
I think the thing that bothers me most about this is that they're using living skin, and then that gives it a creepiness factor rather than a material that is a chemical composite or something like that, or they figured out how to do it so that it can bend and stretch without breaking. But then it's like, well, so does that mean that we're gonna grow? So now we're growing skin in labs apparently so that they can put them on robots. That just bothers me a little bit.
Right next to the artificial chicken they're growing in labs that you're going to be eating soon.
Yeah, or the plant-based meat that I'll have to eat at some point, or the Soylent Green, which is made from people. I'm telling you now.
Oh God, don't even. We're not going to go there.
All right, Jack. Thanks again for being on the show this week. Great stuff as always.
My pleasure. Good talking with you, Keith. Take care.
All right, you too. That's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and add any comments you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.